Well, thank you, Chair, and I thank all of you for being here to testify, and thank you to those of you who served for your service. It is deeply appreciated. I'm going to come to you first. May I call you Dawn? Okay. So first of all, Dawn, I just want to say that listening to veterans, women veterans, and to the people who support them through this study, what I've heard again and again is how often they feel invisible and like their reality is not reflected back to them, either in the CAF or in VAC. So I just want to thank you for working so hard to make yourself seen. It's a hard thing to do, and I really appreciate you doing that. So I guess my question to you is, one of the challenges we have heard from women again and again is this lack of communication between the CAF and VAC. And one of the things that you talked about when you were testifying that really impacted me was speaking about having to open up your files again and again so that you could respond to changes of guidelines and get the benefits that you were entitled to. So I'm just wondering if you could talk to us a bit about what that looked like, if that's okay with you, and any suggestions you have about how that could be a lot more effectively done in the future.
Well, it was like I'm having a problem with the military trying to get my charges dropped. They're like, I have to pay the Department of Justice and tell how I was wronged. It's the exact same thing, like, with Veterans Affairs, you know. There's so many things that they could do. Like, I've had, I don't know how many case managers, and I have had to, like, retell my story so many times since 1996, and there's other people. There has to be streamlined methods that, you know, so, like, you're not opening these wounds. I had to, like, sometimes the onus should be on them sometimes. There's a lawsuit came in. Maybe they should open some cases and not make the person have to go through it all again. Or someone could have helped me, but they said, no one can help you, even the Bureau of Pension Advocates, until you write that letter. Well, I was like sitting there writing it, shaking, because I'd already been through so many denials. I didn't want to subject myself again and set myself up for disappointment. So it was extremely difficult to have to reopen those wounds just to, you know, get something that I should have gotten way back in 1997 when it was awarded.
Well, thank you for that. And I think that is sad that it's hard to hear this, but I'm also relieved in a way that the patterns are starting to be seen by the testimony, because it's the patterns that we see that we need to address in this report so that hopefully we can see meaningful change in the future. The last question I have for you, Dawn, is you talked about how services are often, it feels like you're going to get your insurance and you're fighting with them to get services. And I know that Kathy talked to you about sanctuary trauma, but, you know, one of the things that I hear you saying is, and I've heard a lot of veterans, is there isn't very good outreach to when things change. It's like veterans are not notified, okay, here's the change, here's the next step that you need to take. And then it's on you to figure that out, but at least they've given you the change. So could you just explain a little bit about what you mean when it's like talking to them is like talking to somebody who's giving you insurance?
Well, it's like it's very difficult sometimes. Like, there's feelings involved and stuff, and you can't just, like, when I very first got my pension, it was 20%, you know, and then, like, I have had to fight I don't know how many times, and it's just, you're talking to someone about, like, the most difficult things in your life, and they're talking to you, like, back in even trying to get my cannabis. The doctor from VAC was saying, oh, well, you know, we noticed you were suicidal back whenever, so, like, we're stopping your prescription. And I said, dude, I was suicidal because I almost lost my arm. I said, and I was so depressed, it had nothing to do with the cannabis use. The doctor I saw prescribed it. How can somebody that doesn't even know me overrule a decision? You know, and then it took months to get it all fixed because some guy in VAC knew better than the doctor that I had actually seen in person and had seen a couple times.
Well, thank you. I'm going to come to you, Honorary Lieutenant Colonel Perron. Thank you for being here today. I'm just interested, your organization places women veterans and serving women in the military along with civilian female spouses, I think. Yes. So I'm just curious about this because we've also heard that a lot of serving and veteran women feel very invisible because they're often compared to civilian female spouses and their realities are very different. So I'm just curious about how that works and how do you deal with them differently?
You're absolutely right. They are very different. And when they come to the Pepper Pod for a life shop, their stories are different. What is similar, though, is their career or their culture is very similar in that they've uprooted their family every 2-3 years. They've made sacrifices, but the spouses don't have the medals to show it. They haven't had the glory of a deployment. And so there is a discovery when I do the life shops through that, where they get to share and understand each other. And that is the power and the benefit of having them in the same group. They have different experiences. Women have had deployment issues and some trauma. Some of them have PTSD. But at the same time, the women spouses that have not served in the military, they have other contributing stories that make the life shop so powerful. And they love understanding each other. So, yeah.